also at a fork in the road. As I look out at the thousands, unbelievable, the thousands of people who are gathered here this week to celebrate and to learn and to teach, I'm struck by two contrasting observations. First, I think it is simply remarkable how fast this industry has grown. Just a short time ago, this room was much smaller. I guess the room was the same size, but there were a few people in the room. We collectively, as an industry, were just a flicker. And now, with the addition of the twin fuels of attention and resources, we are very much a roar in the content marketing industry. But my second observation is that we don't actually need any more content marketers. We have plenty, thank you very much. What we really need, if we're going to sustain this success and take a seat near the head of the table of modern business, is not content marketers, quote unquote, who are looking to exploit angles and employ surefire, get-rich-quick systems. What we need are people who have a passion for connections, who understand that there's actually a point to all of this, as Christina said so eloquently, a point to all of this that transcends clicks and it transcends shares and it transcends views and downloads and even lead gen. And that point is this: the mission of content is this. Content is the emotional and informational bridge between commerce and consumer. And building that bridge, it requires more than a budget, it requires more than an editorial calendar, it requires more than analytics, and it requires more than a strategy. It requires people who care. Now, actually, it requires people who love content and what it can do. Not just what content can do for revenue and profits and reduction of customer churn, although those are certainly nice outcomes. But rather, we need people who love content because it helps a young mother pick the best daycare. It helps a hospital administrator decide whether or not to purchase new endocrinology testing equipment. It helps my mother pick the right cruise line when sailing to Alaska. Content helps people make better decisions, it helps them save time, it helps them improve their lives. Creating content is an honor. It's an honor. And it's also an opportunity. It's an opportunity for you, it's an opportunity for me, it's an opportunity for all of us. And I hope you agree that it's an opportunity worthy of passion. Now, you may be sitting there thinking, wow, I have to go to the restroom. You may also be thinking, well, who cares, Jay? This is crazy. Like, I've got a ton of things to get done today. I've got things to do this week. I've got things to do this month. I have things to do this quarter. It doesn't really matter if I or the people on my team think about content marketing as just marketing or as some kind of larger calling, some sort of mission. Why do I care if the people on my team have a passion for content as long as the job gets done? Here's why you should care, jaded content marketing professional. You should care because competition commoditizes competency. Competition commoditizes competency. Look around you. Just look around you in this room. More and more and more and more and more smart people are practicing the craft of content. They're getting better every single day. And dozens and hundreds and thousands of blogs, including mine, podcasts, including mine, conferences like the conference you're sitting in today, are teaching everybody the same tricks and the same best practices. And if you have access to the very same information and the very same ideas that your competition does, and you play that out over time, what happens? What happens is that almost everybody ends up in the same narrow band of expertise. Competition commoditizes competency. And this happens in every professional service. It always happens. Look at a laser eye surgery. When laser eye surgery first came out, only a few ophthalmologists knew how to do it. Only a few ophthalmologists had the special LASIK equipment, and they were gods. They were gods. And now you can get LASIK while waiting for a burger at Five Guys. It's like not a big deal. Like 10 minutes. Here you go. Right? And prices have gone down too, because the differentiation in the business has totally faded away. So this is where we're headed, my friends. And when competition commoditizes competency, what then becomes the differentiating factor? What separates the great from the good? What becomes the difference maker? Don Schultz would tell you that it's how you communicate, but I disagree. How you communicate can be mimicked. I believe the difference maker is people, and even more so, passion. Right now, we're still sort of riding the wave, but this wave will crest. Joe talked about this morning that we are entering the trough of disillusionment. He's right. I can see the wave cresting. I'm sure you can sense it as well. Everything you do and everything you know can and will be copied by your competition. It's just a matter of time. But the one thing they can't duplicate, the one thing they cannot steal from you, is not how you communicate. The one thing they cannot ever take from you is if you fundamentally care more about content than they do. About content and content's role in improving the lives of real people. So my friends, I ask you a simple question, an existential question really. Do you love content marketing enough? Are you making content, or are you making a difference? And the same way that essentially every person above 14 years old eventually falls out of love with Adam Sandler. Look, I'm just reporting the news here, folks. It's also easy to fall out of love with content and content creation. It is easy to fall out of love. When I was putting together this talk, I interviewed dozens of content marketing professionals, many of whom are here this morning. And what I found, when I asked them about their day-to-day existence, their day-to-day circumstances, what I found was not an environment necessarily conducive to passion, but rather a growing set of circumstances, many outside of their control, but a growing set of circumstances that conspire to wring the joy and the wonder out of the content process. Here's what I heard. I want you to say yes. Say yes out loud if any of these are familiar to you. What I heard was a daily pressure to make more content. Let's hear that louder next time. There we go, thank you. What I heard was a daily pressure to justify content expenditures. I heard from people who said they don't have enough people on their team to get all the content created and to keep quality high. This person in the front row is super pissed about that one. That's like, she is living that nightmare every day. I heard about executives that don't understand the role of content as a connector. I heard about turf battles between sales and content, between customer service and content, even between our friends in social media and content. I say yes too. I see it every day myself. In my consulting firm, Convince and Convert, we work with companies to help solve these problems. And in so doing, the one thing that I've learned is that if you love content enough, if you really do have a passion for it, don't give up. Don't give up. Don't get beaten down by the people in your organization and even the people outside of your organization who are trying to turn content into some kind of machine. But it's easy to slip. It happens to me all the time. It's easy to get caught up in the maelstrom and the math of content and lose sight of its role as a bridge between commerce and consumer. And that's a bridge that people should actually want to cross. So here's what I did. I created a simple filter to help determine when I'm slipping, when my focus is shifting from the passion and the people to the procedures and the profits. I use this filter for our clients now, and now I give it to all of you. I call it the mom test. The mom test works because for nearly all of us, our mom not only loves us unconditionally, but is also uniquely unafraid to tell us the truth. When I was in high school, I was the president of the junior class, and in my high school in Lake Havasu City, Arizona, the junior class was in charge of putting together the annual prom. So my friends on the student council and I worked for months and months and months planning this prom. It was a lot of work, and we really tried hard to make it a nice event. And on the night of the prom, we just cut loose, man. It was like unbelievable to actually have that day occur. It's probably how the Content Marketing Institute staff feels today. We just went for it, man. We're dancing and having this great party and just going off. And my mom was an English teacher at the high school, so she was a chaperone for the prom. And the next morning at breakfast, I asked her, I said, "Hey, Mom, did you see me? Did you see me dancing at the prom? I was really dancing. I was really going for it. Like I can really move, right?" And my mom looks at me and she says, "Jay, I'm pretty sure that dancing just isn't your thing." And so today, you will not find me dancing even this evening. Your mom is unafraid. She is unafraid to tell you the truth. And if your mom, who loves you unconditionally, still doesn't like something, guess what? Nobody else will like it either. If you can't convince your mom, you can convince no one. So if you're unsure about a content marketing program, if you're unsure about a tactic, if you're unsure about an idea, just pause for a second and think to yourself, does this pass the mom test? All of us who are making content are sometimes in violation of the mom test. The content professionals I interviewed for this keynote talked about things related to the daily pressure of content volume. Say yes if you've heard any of these. They told me things like just checkbox checking, just creating content because it was on a spreadsheet to be created. They told me things like creating content that they know is of lower quality just to get it off their plate. Yes, I've heard that one. They talked about creating content that clearly serves the need of the company without necessarily thinking about the needs of the customers. Yes, Christina just talked about that. And let me just say something about that particular one. If you're crafting a description of your products and services and you've got photos of them and there's bullet points about features and benefits, my friends, you have not created a piece of content marketing. You have created a brochure. You can call it something different if you want, but that's what it is. And none of those things pass the mom test. You know it, and I know it. You know it, and I know it. When I was in middle school, my bicycle got a flat tire, and it was like a disastrous flat tire. The tire came off the rim, and it was like whatever. And so I went out to the garage to try and fix this tire, and I labored mightily to do so, but I really could not make heads or tails of the whole scenario. So I went inside, and I found my mom, and I said, "Mom, I've got this flat tire, and I tried to fix it, but I just couldn't do it." My mom looked at me, and she said, "Jay, fixing stuff? I don't think that's your thing." And she's right, because I am, to this day, an avid indoorsman. And to throw a little salt in the wound, she had my brother, who was 9. He was 3 years younger than me. He was 9 years old. She had him fix it, and he did it in like 5 minutes, which was embarrassing and horrifying. Now, the content marketing professionals I talked to in advance of this presentation also told me stories about pressure that they feel to generate more leads and to create content that's maybe a little bit too pushy. Say yes if you've experienced any of these. I know you've experienced this one because I've talked about it 3 times already since I got here, putting every stitch of decent content behind a registration form. Yes, even though we know, by definition, as Joe Chernoff once said, that forms are the enemy of spread. We know that to be true, yet everything good we put behind a login. Content professionals told me about content, even in bigger companies, that's starting to feel a little bit like what you see from the get-rich-quick information marketers with really aggressive landing pages and buy now, limited time offer messaging. They told me about content that is strictly promotional, content that isn't a utility in any way, in any shape, or any form. It's not useful at all. It's just an ad in a different format. That doesn't pass the mom test. You know it, and I know it. And once you understand the mom test, and it's actually really easy to apply it, and it's easy to know when you're off course. I would like you to start using the mom test for your day-to-day content decision making. It works for me, and I think it will work for you. Because we can do better. We can always do better as content marketers, and hopefully the mom test will help you do just that. But I want you to remember that competition commoditizes competency. Yes, I want you to be a better content marketer. I want you to use the mom test. But I do not want you to forget that passion is actually the differentiator. More so than any tactic, passion will set you apart. Do not let the internal politics and the business side of content dim the light in your eyes and the fire in your belly. Because once that goes, my friends, once you start to get disillusioned about what we're doing here today, what we're doing as professionals, it is very, very difficult to regain that enthusiasm. You know, they say that dogs can smell fear. You heard that? Dogs can smell fear. Moms can sense, they can sense passion. Moms can sense passion. And they should know you pretty well. Like, after all, you lived inside of them, right? Which is kind of freaky to even think about. You lived inside this person, so they should know you well. They can sense passion. And my friends, if you don't have a burning desire to do this, if you don't care enough about content, if you're not in love with what you do and the people whose lives you touch every day, then your lack of passion does not pass the mom test. You know it, and I know it. A few years ago, my tire-changing brother I mentioned a moment ago passed away from a heart attack at the age of 40. And I had the unenviable task of writing and delivering his eulogy. It was the hardest thing that I have ever done, before or since. But on the way home afterwards, my mom turned to me with tears in her eyes, and she said, "Jay, I think giving speeches and telling people what you think and how you feel, I think that's your thing. You have a passion for it." See, moms always know. They always know. let's never forget how fortunate we are. We are literally changing business every day in real time. We're changing how companies communicate. We're changing how customers research and purchase just about everything. Content is having a transformative impact on the world. And to be a part of that, to even be a little tiny part of that, I think it's a privilege. It's an absolute privilege. You know, baseball players will say that they think it's so amazing that they get to play a game for a living. They get to play a game for a living. Well, guess what? We get to tell stories for a living. We get to interview customers, and we get to make infographics and shoot videos and record podcasts and dick around on Snapchat. We get to do all of this stuff, right? And in a world where everybody who was on Facebook, which is like 1.5 billion people, in a world where everybody who is on Facebook is creating content every time they change their status, guess what, friends? We're actually getting paid to do this. We're getting paid to do this. We're getting paid to use content marketing to build bridges between commerce and customer. I'm Jay Baer. I thank you for having enough passion to be an amazing content marketer. Ask your mom, she'll tell you the truth. Thanks so much for being part of this wonderful event. Cheers.
I can feel my face when I'm with you, but I love it.